Hello, everybody. So I wanted to make a quick video to show running the Ubiquiti network management system locally. I'm just an end user. I'm not affiliated with Ubiquiti in any way, but I've been using their equipment and software for a little bit, and I like it a lot. But in my installation, I only have a handful of devices, so they will host a UNMS instance for you for free if you have at least 10 devices. But I've seen posts on the forum and stuff like that where there's other people in my situation where it's valuable to have the software, but we don't have enough devices to satisfy the requirement for having it hosted for free in the cloud. So I set mine up on a Slackware Linux box that we have running anyway, and I put it in a VirtualBox container, and I like it because it's totally self-contained. It's not very, it's pretty lightweight as far as the system resources that go into maintaining it, and if I decide I want to disable it, there's no mess or anything. It's not like it's actually installed on that development server. But as far as the software goes, it's really great. Being able to have a unified administrative interface, be able to check on what the configuration is, looking at a router, I can see what the throughput is, go into individual access points on our network and see what clients are connected, what their signal strengths are, looking at diagnostics as far as how much RAM and CPU utilization there is. It's great. Having a consolidated user interface for this, I think is really very helpful. So, like I said, I don't have enough devices to satisfy running it in the cloud for free, so I set it up locally. On my network, it's running on a Slackware box in a VirtualBox container, and I think that's a pretty satisfactory solution. So I just wanted to go through, if you're uninitiated, there are aspects of this that might be a little bit intimidating, but honestly, I think it overall is pretty straightforward. So if we start from scratch and we go and search for Ubiquiti UNMS install, the top hit is the installation documentation from Ubiquiti. And there's two things that we need. We need VirtualBox, and we need to get the Ubuntu installation media. So we go to VirtualBox. In this particular case, since I'm running on a Windows machine, I'm going to do the Windows install, but it's also available for Macintosh and Linux. Once the VirtualBox installer is downloaded, I'm going to go ahead and run that. And I'm just going to accept all the defaults here. No real specific installation. Sorry, the screen goes black when it's the Windows security, checking to make sure I want to make changes to the computer. But I'm not going to run it right away because I also want to install this extension pack. So the VM VirtualBox extension pack, I'm going to download that. Its installation. So I did set this up a few minutes ago just as a dry run, so that's why it's showing reinstall. Normally, you would just get this license agreement. Again, I want to make changes to the computer. So we've now got the VirtualBox and VirtualBox extensions pack installed. I'll run this again in a minute, but what we also need is the Ubuntu installation media. So if we follow their link, you basically have two choices. You can either do the desktop image or a server install image. The desktop image, has the graphical user interface, and it's a lot more rich as far as the system that it installs. The server install is a lot more sort of bare minimum stuff. And if all you're using this VirtualBox system for is running UNMS, I'm going to suggest using the server install. Lighter weight, it doesn't have as many resource requirements, and I think it's a little bit more straightforward just to install. So while that's downloading, we can go ahead and start up VirtualBox and make our container. So we're going to make a new VirtualBox, And if we type in UB is the first part of the name, it automatically knows that we're doing Linux Ubuntu. So in this case, I'm going to call my box UB_02. You can call it whatever you want. As far as memory, Ubiquiti wants at least 2 to 3 gigabytes of memory. I've been running mine with 2, and that seems totally satisfactory. So we're going to set up 2048 as the memory size. We're going to let it do a hard drive in VirtualBox that's dynamically allocated. So far, those are all the defaults. But I am going to change it. Instead of 10 gigabytes, it seems like running it at 8 gigabytes is sufficient to install UNMS and everything and still have about a gigabyte left over. So we're going to create our hard drive as 8 gigabytes. And there we go. So when we start this up, it's going to want to know the installation media. So we need a startup disk, and we're going to browse to where we downloaded. Actually, this one is still downloading. I don't know, the mirror I think is getting hammered for the Ubuntu installation. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that download. And I already did download the Ubuntu, so we're going to add the Ubuntu 64-bit server ISO image file in my downloads folder, and then choose, and then start. So we're starting up a brand new VirtualBox. We gave it the link to the disk image for the installation media, and it's starting up from scratch. I'm also going to change my view to scale the display to like 150% so it's easier to read. Okay, so far we haven't interacted with the installation at all. This is all just its bootstrap. We're going to select English as language for me. And if I was doing this as a normal installation, I would select this option to update to the new installer. But just for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to keep it quick and go without that. So the keyboard and everything is fine. And this is the first potential gotcha. The networking in VirtualBox by default wants to use a NAT address for VirtualBoxes within a machine, which means that if I set this up on this computer, on this Windows box, I could access this VirtualBox. But from other computers, you can't. So it's actually a VirtualBox configuration thing that we're going to change. And if we go back to VirtualBox UI, go into settings for this VirtualBox, go to network. We're going to change it from NAT to a bridged adapter that it's attached to. And what that does is it makes it so that I can now get a IP address on this VirtualBox that's accessible to anybody else on my subnet. So by default, it wants to use DHCP to get the address automatically. And there's no reason really not to do that. It just means that you have to take note of what the address was that it got and use that when you access the box later on. But just to show for the sake of completeness, I'm going to change mine to be a static IP address. So if we go in here to edit the IPv4 information, change it from automatic manual. My subnet is 10.0.10. It's full range. The address that I'm going to give this machine is 10.0.10.100. The gateway is 10.0.10.1, and the name server, in my case, I have a DNS server running on a machine that's .11, but most people probably just have that DNS running on their gateway. and we don't need to do anything for search domains. So as far as like setting up the manual networking configuration, that's it. Like I said, there's also no reason not to do the DHCP. Just make sure you see what it is, or later on you can go into your router and check the DHCP allocation and see what it got. So in my case, I'm setting it up as 10.0.10.100. We're going to go with that. And we don't need a proxy. We're going to use the default mirror address. Hopefully that'll be quicker than what we saw with the ISO download. So now we're in the Ubuntu file system setup. We want to use an entire disk. We're using the VirtualBox hard drive that it set up, and we're done. So this destructive action just means that we're going to be destroying the hard drive that was created in VirtualBox for us. We're not really destroying it. We're going to initialize it and set up the server image there. So we're going to continue. In my case, my name is Chris. We're going to call the server UNMS _02 because I've already got one running. Pick a username. I'm going to just make a user called UNMS. You can make whatever user you like. I'm going to give it a password, and we're done. I am going to install the OpenSSH server so that I can SSH into the command line interface from other computers if I want. Although you can just do everything from the UI that shows up on the VirtualBox on the system that you're running. So not going to worry about the SSH identity from another system or anything. All these packages we're going to leave unchecked. And now it's doing the installation. So a really pretty vanilla install. The only things so far that are important are that we changed the VirtualBox networking settings to use a bridged adapter instead of NAT. And then I set up the network ID or configuration for this VirtualBox to have a static IP allocation, but you could use the DHCP. And then we also installed the SSH. But those are the only three things that are really the only configuration details that we set. So the rest of this installation, it's just going to go through and install the system. And there is an option once this initial setup is done where it will want to know if we want to get the current security updates, which by all means I encourage you to do. For the case of this demo, I'm just going to skip that because it takes a few minutes to download and set them up and stuff like that, and I don't want to waste time on the recording. So yeah, we're going to probably have a few minutes to kill anyway, waiting for the kernel install and then a few other packages, but it's not that long. This computer that we're using is a little Windows box. It's not a particularly modern computer. I think if we look at the CPU, it's a older i7-3770K. Normally, I stream iRacing on Twitch, and this is my stream PC that I use for that. It's not the strongest computer by any means. I think the Ubuntu installation is almost complete. Okay. So like I said, normally I would encourage you to do the update, but I'm just going to cancel for now. Okay, at long last. See if I can delete that and remove it in post. So anyway, remove installation medium, sort of superfluous, doesn't really anyway. Going to restart the system. Okay, so this is the first login prompt we've gotten. We're going to use the user we created, which in my case was UNMS. And we've now logged into the computer. We're getting a little UI spew and stuff because other processes are still finishing up. But here we are at the console command. Not much here on a brand new installation. But if we look at like our hard drive utilization, we've got 46% of our hard drive free now. And we're going to go and install the UNMS. Go back to the installation instructions. There's this command which goes to Ubiquiti, gets the installation script, and runs it. You can just type it in, or in my case, I'm going to just paste it in. Apparently I cannot. Control V is just taking what I'm going to do is just control read the command line at the top. Perl -fs lowercase capital S capital L. Press for Ubiquiti s unms.com. v1 install. Typing that to temp or ins.sh. That's going to get the installation script. And the and tells it to run the next command simultaneously. You do bash mp unms ns. That's going to get the installation script and run it as root. Password. Here we go. So now that's off to the races, downloading and installing UNMS. Are going to use the overcommit memory setting. You're only using 2 gigabytes of memory. You want to, I guess we might have used a different username. It's warning us that UNMS user exists. Normally, I think it creates that user, but I'm going to go ahead and continue with the installation. That's just a collision between the username in Ubuntu and the user that UNMS wanted to create. But like I said, I don't think it's a problem. If you want to avoid that, you might create a different Linux username and let UNMS install and create its own user, but Okay, ta-da! UNMS is now running. So we're still at the console prompt here. Go and open a browser. Type in the IP address for our new VirtualBox container, 10.0.10.100. Now you'll get this dialog or this warning about it not being private because it's trying to do HTTPS to a local host that we don't have a certificate set up for. So it's fine to proceed. It's not unsafe. It's he just created. Very first time you go through, it does this startup, which says it should take less than a minute. My experience running on the VirtualBox is it could take a little bit longer, but not a whole long time. Okay, so we're about to log in for the first time on our new instance. Into the terms and service. I'm going to create UNMS as the username. And the host name it got from the machine, it knows it's 10.0.10.100. If you did have a fully qualified domain name, you could use Let's Encrypt and avoid the security warning, but I'm going to do that. I'm not going to set up an email server. So you do want to download this vault key and then put it somewhere that's safe that you can use in the future. I have noticed that running UNMS on a VirtualBox like this, if it does get interrupted or reset unexpectedly, you'll need to re-upload that key. So it is important to keep it on a computer where you have access and can upload it if you need it. Now we're giving it the range of IPs. The identity format 10.10 or 10.0.10.0/24. And that's it. Here's the what's new screen, but we can do that. We're now in UNMS. So I'm not going to go through setting up and configuring the actual software. My goal was to show setting up VirtualBox, setting up Ubuntu, setting up UNMS within that container. And if you need to do administrative or stop and restart it and stuff, from the VirtualBox window, you can just close it. Then what I've been doing for the most part is doing the save machine state so that it basically hibernates the container and then makes it so that when we start it again, it goes right back to where it was. Now the VirtualBox system is running again. You don't need to leave it logged in. You can log out the user that you had, leave it there at the login prompt. Minimizing this doesn't seem to have any impact on its performance. So that now we're back. There. So thanks for watching. I'll see if I can do a little post-processing and edit out the delays that we were waiting on. It seemed like the longest part of this whole process was waiting for the Ubuntu cancellation of the security updates and stuff. But the rest of it was pretty straightforward. So anyway, I hope this is valuable for somebody. Thanks for watching. Take care. Drive safe. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.